Okay, so with that, let's get started and let me okay walk you through the agenda for today. And now, right now we are in the introduction, the welcome session, and after that we will be moving into the main session of our community meetup. So that would be the featured session. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A for that presentation. And after that, we will be moving into a what it tips segment. And again the Q&A session of that, and at last we will have our what's new in Power BI segment, where we are gonna give some announcement about Power BI and updates about Power BI. So that's the agenda for today, and let's get started. Gogula, you have anything to add?
Yeah, just that this will be a recorded session. So if you're not comfortable or if you're not okay with being recorded, you might have to, this is the time to leave the session. But otherwise, welcome. And let's have Asanka take over.
Yeah. So our featured session today will be on the tools, third-party tools that will be helpful for Power BI developers. So the session will be done by Asanka. So Asanka is talking about him. He's an experienced data engineer, and he's currently working in Qrious as a BI consultant, and he has been working in the data analytics field for more than 10 years, and he has involved in lots of BI projects or projects and solutions in different industries. And as a technology enthusiast, we got to know that he enjoys conducting technical presentations both locally and internationally, just like presentations just like this as well. So he's here today with us to give you a great presentation on this particular area. And he's also a Microsoft Certified Solution Associate as well as a Microsoft Certified Azure Data Engineer. And he's passionate in data engineering, data analytics, BI, and AI. So without further ado, let me invite our presenter for the featured session, Asanka, on our virtual stage. Asanka, over to you.
Thanks, Hamini. Thanks for the nice introduction, and thank you very much for the giving me this opportunity. Well, let me share my screen. This one. Hope everyone can see my screen and can hear me clearly.
Yes, from me.
Yeah. Good. So today's session is actually about the third-party tools that we can use with the Power BI. And what I try to do in this session is try to cover as much as possible. So I will not go to in depth of any of these tools, but I want to show what are the key features that each and individual tool facilitates, so that you can go home and you can do your own studies about these tools, and you can have a look on these tools and start using this. So that's the idea. Look, I try to cover as much as possible as much as features within my sessions. So I think someone give me a better introduction than these slides, but what I want to emphasize is like you can connect me from the LinkedIn, and you can follow me the Twitters, as well as I have my own blog, so you can go and have a look on my blog. Cool. So the Power BI and external tool, the topic of today. Why people are talking about Power BI and external tool now? Like external tools related to Power BI, people has been using this for a while, right? And all of a sudden this has become a topic. The reason is like the Microsoft saw that these external tools is actually helpful for them because they are focusing on different things, and these external tools actually giving a value addition to the Power BI. So what they did was like they added the support within Power BI so that you can use external tools when you like without leaving the Power BI interface itself. So they introduced a ribbon for the external tools, and they officially announced that they support the external tool in 2020 July. And then when this comes to the Power BI and people started seeing that, okay, what's this external tool? Because most of the Power BI developers, they did not know about these tools. They were actually using Power BI, only the Power BI to desktop to do the report modification and modeling and all those stuff. But people who came from the data engineering background, people who were using the SSAS tabular engine, they were using some of these tools working with the tabular engine, and they saw that, okay, same tools can be used with the Power BI as well. But when this new ribbon comes to play, people start wondering like what this external tool is about. So what is actually external tools is actually, if you check Power BI, the Power BI is the modeling part of the Power BI is done on top of the SSAS tabular engine. Irrespective of the visualization, visualization is a separate section, but the modeling or the data part is actually still handled in the SSAS tabular engine. And when it's come to these tools, what this tool does is actually all those tools, they connect to the SSAS tabular engine, and they use XML protocols or the DLLs or the libraries given by Microsoft, tabular model object model DLLs, and they connect to the SSAS tabular engine and extract the information. They can be writing the data to the tabular engine, though they be reading the data. That's how the third-party tools are developed. Right? So the next question is, if you don't see Power BI external tools within your ribbon, what you can do. So this is in a scenario where you have installed some of these tools and you can't see the external tools icons available within your ribbon. What you have to do is like, you have to create a JSON which consists of this information. The information what you have to enter in this JSON text is you have to set the name and the description. It can be in descriptions or the path. This is the important attribute of this JSON. You have to set where is your exe file is. I'll show you with an example how you set all those things. And the arguments, by default, it will be the server and the database, and the icon emerge as a base64 string. This is an example of how it's shown in the ALM toolkit. So you have defined the version and the name ALM toolkit, and the description, you can put a description that this will be your tooltip value, and the path where you have the your exe file, in this case like C program files, Power BI ALM toolkits, Power BI ALM toolkits, and the ALM toolkit.exe. And the arguments, this is the argument provided by the Power BI. So you can define a server as well as a database, and then you can define the image. So if I'm talking about if any of these tools are not available, how you set up the new external tool. So once you create that JSON file, what you have to do is like you have to copy that file. You have to give an extension for that file, JSON file called .pbitool.json, and how to copy that file into a file folder within your installation. In most cases, if you have a default location for the Power BI installation, it will be common files, Microsoft Shared, Power BI desktop, and external tools. Once you copy that files with the required valid information, and if you restart the Power BI desktop, it should be available in your external tool window. But all the tools that I'm going to show in this presentation, like ALM Toolkits, DAX Studio, Power BI Helper, Tabular Editor, all those tools, all those tool developers, they within their installation, they put this JSON file, so you don't have to worry about any things. You just have to install these applications, and they will put the required pbitool.json files within your installation file, external tool location. But if in case you are developing your own applications, or you are developing which is not facilitated as the Power BI external tools, you can do the same registration manually as well. Cool. Right. So next question is, who developed these tools and how they develop, whether I can develop a tool for the Power BI as well. Of course you can. If you're coming from a coding background, if you have a coding background, a coding experience, Microsoft has given you a DLL called Tabular Object Model, which is actually an extension of AMO. If you're coming from data engineering background, you know that there was a DLL available called AMO, which actually facilitate to read and write data to the Microsoft Analysis Service multidimensional engine. So the TMO is actually an extension of the AMO. So you can use AMO, DLL, TMO, DLL, and you can write your own C# code to read and write your Power BI modeling engine. You can use all those properties. You can read the server databases. This is obviously is coming from the Power BI, but you can write for all the model object. You can read the table definitions, column definitions, partitioning measures, hierarchies, relationship, whatever you see, perspectives and roles. You can see all those properties within your libraries, and you can start writing your own code on top of those objects. Or you know that even the tabular engine or multidimensional engine, or even in the SQL Server, we have something called DMV, Dynamic Management View. So remember I told you that Power BI is developed on top of the SAS tabular engine. So tabular engine has DMV. You can connect to those DMVs. You can write the TM script, and you can execute those script and get the data out of that one. Basically you can write select statement against these DMVs, and you can get the data about the your tabular model, like how many measures are there, what are the measure definitions, how many partitions are there. All those information is available within DMVs. So these are the ways that you can develop your own tools when it comes to third-party Power BI tools. Cool. That's it. This is pretty much it for the presentation. I don't have much of the slide. This is the only slide I have. I'm directly jumping to the demo. The reason is like I wanted to cover as much as possible when it comes to these tools, because I have 4 tools to cover, and each and individual tool facilitates a lot of features. So let me explain what my demo is all about. I have a data warehouse called Qrious Retail Data Warehouse, and within that I have, this is a standard data warehouse. Within that I have a couple of fact tables. The fact table that I'm going to select is fact online sales, which has like 12.6 million records, and I'm going to bring that fact table as well as all the related dimensions to my Power BI model. And I'm going to use the import mode, and then I'm going to use star schema. Once I've done that, as any Power BI developer, what I'm going to do is like I'm going to create a clean, effective data model, and that's the main part. I'm going to have a good data model with this data warehousing tables, and then I'm going to document that model once I do that, and finally I'm going to deploy that to the service. It can be other way around. I can deploy it first, and then I can do the deployment. So all the tools that I'm going to use in this demo, you can find it from the SQL BI site. I'll quickly go to this site. SQL BI site, I think if you're coming from the data engineering or the BI background, I think everyone has visited this site. If you have like having DAX queries, problems, any DAX courses, this is the site everyone goes. It's run by the Marco Russo and Alberto Ferrari. So they have, what they have done is like they have created a page called tools, which have a shortcut for all the external tools available. So you don't have to go and search each and individual. You just go to this site and it will direct you to the individual website which provide the external tools, right? So I have using DAX Studios, tabular editors, and AML toolkits, and there's one thing's missing is the Power BI helper, which you can search and download from the. If you search the Power BI helper, you will go to the Power BI helper website, right? Cool. So I'll show you my data warehouse. This is my Qrious Retail Data Warehouse. This is my fact online sales, and these are the dimensions that I'm going to use for the model. So if I extract this to my Power BI model, which will take some time. So what I have done is I have already created a report, and I've already extract those measures. So I'll show you how my tables looks within my model. So I have fact online sales. I have all the related dimensions, promotion dimensions, stores, currency, customers, and product, and dim date. And I have created a disconnected table, which is separate, because the reason is I wanted to have measure type. Based on the measure type, when I click on the individual measures, I want to see how the values are changing. A measure called universal online sales. I think this is common patterns when we do the Power BI report. So this how my model is. I have not done any other changes apart from introducing this disconnected table, as well as creating a new measure in Power BI model called universal online sales measure. And these are the expression for this measure. So I'll go to this one later. Now what I want to do is I want to clean this model and I want to make an effective model. So for the first problem I have, when I load all those 12.6 million records, my Power BI file is quite big. So if I go to my location, the disk drive, where I can see the size of the model is actually 725 megabytes. We all know that if you use Power BI Pro, the maximum size of the PBIX file is 1 GB. So if I can publish this file to the Power BI service as of now, but when we add more data to the data warehouse, I'm not sure how will it go. And the other problem is like, because I think from the service, the maximum size you can grow is 1.2 GB. And then the other problem is like when I refresh this data, when I do a full refresh or when I deploy it, there's a possibility that there could be a error due to the connectivity. There could be a network issues, or there are some other issues because of the high data volume. So I want to check whether I can minimize the size of this model. But if I go to the Power BI size, the only way to minimize this model is I might have to delete certain tables, I might have to delete certain columns. The problem is like I want all those dimensions, so I can't delete any of these dimensions. When it's come to columns, I have no idea how much each and individual columns takes space, because I know there are certain columns I don't want to, but I'm not sure whether it will make a difference whether if I click on the say ETL load ID, because I don't know how much space is taken by the individual column. So for that, I actually go to the external tools now, and then I'm going to start with my DAX Studio demo. So I click on the DAX Studio. When I click on the DAX Studio, it will automatically connect to the my model here. And it will show all the tables available here, the tables available in my model, as well as it will show other heap of tables which I cannot see in my Power BI. These are the table actually created by Power BI. If you have a date tables within the Power BI model, Power BI will automatically create a one date calendar table for you unless you choose not to. If you see this load date, it actually a date within my data warehouse. And when I extract it, it shows as a hierarchy, because Power BI consider that as a date hierarchy, because I choose it to do. The one thing I can do is I can quickly go to the files. This is not to do with this demo, but I just want to show one thing because I talked about it. Go to the options, and there's something called there's something called load file within the current file, and there's something called time intelligence. Just untick this one and click OK, and you will see that this icon will go away, and it will be a normal date field within my model. And if you go back to the DAX Studio, all those tables are gone in your model, because Power BI they basically drop those tables created from the Power BI side. It will save some space, but not a much space. But it's a good practice that if you don't want all those hierarchies created for your model, just disable that one from the Power BI side. Right. Now, that's what the DAX Studio does is actually, in this case, is actually connect to the Power BI Analysis Services Tabular engine, and it executes set of the DMVs and get the information from that. Okay, going back to my original problem, how to save my space. Let's go to the advanced. There's something called view metrics. If you click on the view metrics, it actually open up a new tab which shows you information about the memory usage or the space usage of your Power BI model. I'll start from the summary. The summary shows you that the total size of your model is 1.36 GB. Remember, I showed you 700 MB in the disk, but this 1.36 GB is actually the memory taken within your RAM. So when Power BI model is saved to a disk, it do another compression. So it's not the actual size of the data within your memory. So the memory is 1.36 GB. Once you save it to the model, the disk drive, do another compressions. So it's 700 MB in the disk drive. And it said that I have 8 tables and all the 8 tables have 169 columns. Let's go back to my tables. So within the tables, it gives you a set of information like cardinality of the tables. This cardinality is actually collapse it. Cardinality is the how much unique values within that individual tables, table size in the bytes, all the heap of information. I'm not going to explain all those things. The important part is like you will see that you have 99% of your total data model is actually taken from the factor analysis, which is obvious because this is the biggest fact table. I have 12.6 million. All these other tables are actually dimensions. But then I know that, okay, the 99% space is taken from this table, and I want to see what are the columns it takes the space within this table. And if you expand this one, it will show all the columns available in your table, and it will show you how each and individual column taken the space. So again, it goes to the cardinality, how much unique value within the columns. And if you go all the way up here, if you check all those 3 columns, these are the 3 columns which take 90% of your space within your table. If you combine 50%, 32%, 5%, it's almost 90% of your model size is taken from only 3 columns. The funny thing is, like, I don't want these 3 columns. I don't want test ID column, checksum, or the online sales key, which is a surrogate key for the fact table. Personally, I don't know why people put a surrogate key for the fact table. So what I'm going to do is, like, I don't want these 3 columns. I'm just going to delete these columns in my model. So let's go quickly to the Power BI model again and delete this column, which I don't want, because tabular, the DAX Studio says that it takes a lot of space. And I'm going to go to the online sales key. Okay, deleted online sales key. Google, I basically I can't see the chat window. If someone asking question, can you please raise that for me?
Yes, I will do so. Thanks.
Yep, cool. So the next thing I'm going to pick is test ID column. I'm going to delete this one. Right. And then, yeah, let's save this back to the disk and see how much impact it make for my model. And save it in here. Right. It's working on it. And let's go to the here. See this. Yeah. So remember, I start with the 700 MB. Now it's like 41 MB. So imagine the amount of space I saved within my disk, within my memory, and within my Power BI service as well, just by deleting 3 columns. So this is the case for most of our models. If you analyze your model from the, we call that area as a Vertipack analyzer. If you analyze your model in the Vertipack analyzer within the DAX Studio, or if there's something called Vertipack analyzer separately, another tool, but you can do the same thing in the DAX Studio as well. If you use Vertipack analyzer within the DAX Studio, you can have a look on how much space is taken from each and individual columns. Not only that, there are a heap of other information, but the main thing is how each and individual column is taken, space is taken from your model. And you can make your mini model very small if you pay attention, and you can check whether it's required and if you pay attention to the cardinality of each and individual column, right? So next thing what I'm going to do is, like, let's go back to the DAX Studio, right? I'm going to close this one. So DAX Studio is an ideal tool if you're starting to write a query, if you're starting to develop your, if you're starting to learn DAX. That's the main functionality, this, how the DAX Studio started. Like in here, if you starting to write a query, you cannot know how the value comes until you send the query to the Power BI model, until it gets fails, and there are very difficult to write query in the Power BI. But if you go here, like, it's quite straightforward. The reason is, like, the DAX Studio has all those functions that you can use. If you don't know what are the functions you can use within the DAX, it's just a matter of you drag and drop and give you the information about what's the function names and what are the parameters you use. It gives a bit of a description as well. And the other thing is, like, let's say that I want to see this, let's say that I want to see all the values. I'll pick a different value, maybe something small like customer. Right? You can say that, okay, have IntelliSense. Okay, you can say that evaluate the dim customers, and you just can run these queries. And You can see the result over here. So likewise, it gives you the IntelliSense facilities. You can write the queries. I'm not sure the first one, like you can get this one. You can say that values. You can likewise, you can write the DAX queries. You can play with your DAX within the DAX Studios. And that's not the only things. Let's say that you have some kind of performance issue in your tabular model. You say that, okay, if I seek the sales quantities, it shows fine. Let's say that there's something wrong within your click sales summary, which is not in this case. But say there's a performance issue in your model. The only way you can see from the Power BI is you can go to the views and you can see the performance analyzer. If you start recording and click on some button, it will actually go through the queries and it can show you the what each and individual query takes time. And apart from that, you pretty much don't have much information about what happened to your query, why it's taking so long. But if you go to the DAX Studio, let's say that you copy the query executed from this visualization, and if you copy and paste that query, you basically can copy and paste the queries coming from the Power BI performance analyzer in here, and you can execute this query. And you can see the same result set coming from the this query, which is taken from the Power BI itself. And then you can play around with this DAX. You can check the DAX and see how the values are changing. If you want, you can do that as well. But the important thing is what other information DAX Studio provide to you. So there's something called query plan and the server timing. So what I'm going to do is like I'm going to enable the query plan and the server timing and then run this execution. Once I do that, right, if you go to the query plan and the server timing tab, it gives you more information about how each and individual queries execute against a tabular engine. Again, if you're coming from the development background, if you're coming from the data engineering background, this is the same query plan you see from the tabular engine. And if you're expert in that area, you can see how the query is executed. To be honest, I'm not expert in this. I just see a set of JSON query text which actually explain how the query is executed. But there's something other called server timing. So the server timing is very important, very useful when you do troubleshooting to a performance. What it gives is like it gives you how the tabular engine, formula engine, tabular model, so the Vertipack formula engine as well as the storage engine uses the time, how much storage engine is used, how much formula engine is used. So if you know, if you go to in depth on the performance improvement of the tabular engine, you should know that the formula engine is actually a single threaded within the individual query executions, whereas the storage engine is multi-threaded, which means that if you can use storage engine as much as possible within your calculation, you get better performance. Whereas if you use formula engine heavily, depending on how complex your calculation is, you might hit a bottleneck because it's a single threaded. So you can have that information here said, okay, this query is taken from the 99.8 formula engine and the 1 point is the solution engine. Apart from that, it gives you how much cache is used within these queries, because you know that within the Power BI, the cache is the result set. So when you see some kind of performance issue one time, and then when you refresh the same value, you will not have the same performance as much as is showed in the original query because it caches to one. So when you replicate the performance issue, you always have to clear the cache. So that feature is also there. You can clear the cache. Let's say the clear the cache function, and then it will drop all the cache available in your model, tabular model, and then what you can do is that you can go back and you can execute these queries, right? And once you do that, you will see that now there's no SE cache hit, and the formula engine usage as well as solution engine, storage engine usage has changed, as well as it shows how each and individual scans happen against the tabular engine, right? So if you are given more information about your query executions, which will help you to do the troubleshooting, which will help you to analyze your performance problems within the Power BI. So these are the informations, these are the features available in the DAX Studio. That's not only thing, there are a heap of other things. Yeah, you can load the Power BI performance data, because if you go to Power BI, there's something called export. What it does is actually export all the performance information in the JSON. You can import that information to the DAX Studio, and you can, rather than copying and paste the queries, you can import that information and you can build that data in here. And there are other things like you can format your DAX, you can export your data to Excel, because when you export in certain results set to within the Power BI, there are some limitations, but in DAX Studio, unless the DAX Studio crashes, there's no limitations. So you can get the results set to Excel files, and you can clip, or you can do a heap of other things. So these are the main features. I recommend you to go install the DAX Studio and start using against Power BI. This is one of the main things, one of the main third-party tools when you should use if you're a Power BI developer. Cool. Yeah, so pretty much it when it comes to DAX Studio, rest is up to you. So what I'm going to do is like, okay, my model is now pretty much smaller compared to what I originally started. I started with 700 MB, now it's all good. I have a like 400 MB file. Next thing what I'm going to do is like, I want to clean up this model. I can't give this model to my business users because there are a heap of unwanted columns. I have currency keys, customers keys, date keys. My customer will pretty much hate it to see all those keys available in model when he wants to create the report. So I want to make it like a proper, nicely done model. And I don't want to spend a lot of time as well. What I'm going to do is like, I'm going to use another cool external tools called Tabular Editor. I'm run the Tabular from my external tools window, and I'll open up in this screen. It will open the same thing I opened. It will show the same set of information shown in the DAX Studio as well. It will show all the tables available, right? And it will show all the columns and pretty much everything. What I'm going to do is like the first thing, I want to hide all the keys which I don't want to show to my business users. If I go to the Power BI, I have to select one by one and have to click hide. I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is like, I'm going to select my date keys and I'm going to press Control. I'm going to select all the keys that I don't want my business users to see with the ETL load date, load dates and update date. What I can do is right click on this one and make invisible, right? Or there's a shortcut for the Control I. So I'm going to use that one now for the Control I. Remember what I'm going to do? I'm going to hide all the unwanted columns. Go to the stores. I don't want store keys, geographic keys. What else I don't want? Maybe entity keys, ETL load date, upload date. I don't want these unwanted columns to be visible for my business users. This is done. Date is done. Go to product key. Maybe all these IDs as well. They don't want to see IDs because it's just for my calculations. Maybe not URLs as well. These things makes my model bit overloaded. And then go to the damage promotion keys. No, I don't want these things as well. Just press the Control I, currency keys, Control I, customer keys, geographic key. I don't want to see, but I want these my relationships and all these columns. Control I. Yeah, pretty much it. Okay, I've hidden this thing in my tabular editor, but if you go to Power BI, things are still there. So what I have to do is like, all the changes I do, I have to click save the changes to the connected database. Once I click this one, we'll see what's going to happen to my Power BI model. I hope I clicked it one. Did I not? Yep, save changes. Yep. So if you go to the Power BI model, all those things I selected and make invisible are gone in my model. So just whatever the changes you do in the tabular model, it get instantly reflect in my model itself, right? So cool that I don't have to go and pick one individual columns to hide it. I just selected everything with Control. Maybe you use a shift to select all and then hide it, but it's still showing here. What I'm going to do is like, I'm going to make it invisible in here as well. I can click the show and hide hidden object, and if I click this one, it will all those columns that are hidden from the model will go away, right? One thing is done. The next thing that I want to do is actually I want to make my columns looks more readable. As of now, this is actually a camel case. You can see that full date labels you know from the experience, like the business users hate these kind of column renames. For some reason, they don't understand why we don't put a space. This is a development thing, but they don't understand. So what I want to do is like I want to rename all these columns to make it a proper case. If I want to do that, it will take a lot of time. I have to go each and individual column, say that rename, 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 rename. I don't want to spend all my time for something small like that. That's where the advanced scripting comes to play in the tabular editor. So the tabular editor, the advanced scripting is actually you can write C# code against your tabular objects. So you just know the C# code, how the tabular editor is done is actually they have used a more DLL, and on top of that they have a written simplified wrapper on top of that. It's some kind of bridge, or I could the wrapper classes. What they do is like they use this wrapper, and then you can use that wrapper to write code on top of the TMO. For example, like let's say that I can say that okay, give me the selected dot select. And I'll do to the one of my codes. Go to the camel case, the purple case. For some reason, I don't know why the this one is not good. So I'll show you the code written from the tabular editor itself. What it does is actually it goes to the selected object, and for each an object, it actually rename the name, rename the object, making it as a camel case to the proper case. It introduces space in between the next uppercase value. How do you get this code? If you go to the tabular editor website, they have something called useful script snipped. So what I have done is I actually copied the all those code written by the them itself, and I'm going to use this code because I'm kind of lazy and I'm not expert in C#. But if you're not expert in C#, there are a heap of sample code which does all those things that I'm going to show in my demo. So you can copy and paste this code, and you can just execute it. We might have to do small modifications, but in most cases, all those code works as it is. So the first thing I'm going to show is like it's something to do with camel case to proper case. So just copy this code and execute it over there. I'll copy from here just to show that I didn't do any modifications. I'll go it here. Right. So what it does is like it's read the column name and rename it to the proper case. What I have to do is like I'm going to select all these columns from this table and execute this code I selected. And you can see that it automatically from the code it renames the into a proper readable format. I'm going to do that for the all the attributes available in my model.
Asanka, while you're doing that, could you just paste the link to that tutorial that you just showed?
Yeah, will do. So it's just if you go to the tabular editor, if you go to the documentation, you can see all the documentation. Under that, there's something called useful script snipped. I'll paste it here. Yep. Cool. What I was doing is rename. Yep. So I did it for the product dimension. I'm going to do it for the sales promotions and go to the dim currency. I'll do the same thing here and go to the dim customer and I'm going to do the same thing here. Cool. So I have made my model more readable to my business user within few seconds rather than spending a lot of time. And I'm going to save this one back to my model and see how it make or break my model. It will break your visualizations for sure. Because if that is used within your model as a measures, the Power BI will automatically fix it. But if it's used as within the visualization, if you do any rename to the properties, it will break your visualizations. So that's something you have to remember. If you use it in the visualizations, and if you rename properties when you do some kind of modifications, it's common for the Power BI as well. It has nothing to do with the tabulator. But when you, the ideal thing is like before you create any visualizations, you need to make sure that your model is clean. So the first step is clean the model and then create the visualization. But what I want to do is make my models look more nicer, more readable, rather than having a camel case. So I think the business user will like this compared to what happened few seconds ago. So, and just is quite straightforward. If you do it in your hand by manually, it will take a lot of time to rename this one. Cool. The next thing I want to do is I want to, like, if you know, if as a Power BI developer, the standard practice is like all those columns are actually measures within my Power BI model, but I don't want to keep these columns. The standard way is like when you have a measure within measure as a column, what you do is like you hide that column and you create a measure instead of that. The reason is like few things. One is like when you refer this column within your Power BI, within a model as a different measure, you will always have to use the aggregations for that column. So you will always have to write some return amount, some discount amount when you refer within another measure. That's one thing. And you know that you can analyze the model within Excel, but unfortunately, Excel only support measures. So if you connect to this model from the Excel, it will not allow you to analyze discount amount, discount quantity, return, all those columns within the Excel. It will only allow you to analyze within the Excel, only the measures. So for that, the standard way, what we do is like we hide these columns and then we create a measure for each and individual columns, default measure, right? So if I want to do that, I have to create a new measure called some discount amount and then hide this one. But if you again go back to the tabular editor, you can do same thing very quickly. So I'm going to show how we can do that. You can copy and paste the same snippet, but I have taken a copy of that query. So what this does is actually it goes to each and individual, it loops through each and individual columns I select, and then it create a new measure. The measure is sum of your column name, and then the measure expression is sum function with the your column name, and it provides the format string, and you can say that this is the description of my column or the measure, new measure, and you can say the display folder to my measure as well. So all of these things you can modify, right? And then and you hide the original column. So that's the output of these measures. What I'm going to do is like I'm going to select my sales quantity, sales amount, return quantity, return amount, discount quantity, discount amount, maybe total cost. All those things I think as measures. It right now is columns, but I want to convert this into the measures. I'm select all those columns and execute this queries. See what happens. Automatically, it will hide the columns and it will create measures and it will put into the folder within my model. And then what I'm going to do is like I'm going to save this one and see how it show in Power BI. Right. As you can see, all the columns, in fact, online sales instantly gone and new measures are available in my measure folder. This is exactly the same as the value as we see in the column. There's nothing different, but now it is shown as a measure rather than the column, right? So that is done. The next thing I want to do, remember, like I just spent few seconds, copy the code, and maybe if you want to do my modification and select all those columns and execute the queries, and instantly it will convert to the measures. The next requirement I get from my business user mostly is that they want to have a time series calculation for pretty much all the measures. So if you have sales quantity, they will ask, one user will ask, say that I want to have MTD values. One will say that, okay, we need to have YTD values. We need to have year-on-year comparison. We want to have PTD values, all those time series calculation. Creating those time series calculations for one measure is not a big deal, but let's say that you have like 50 odd measures, right? And this user is coming and tell that, okay, I want to have all the time series calculation for all the measures. You have to spend a lot of time, but it shouldn't be the case because these are straightforward calculations. So that is where the tabular engine comes to play. If you go back to this scripting, you can find the same script that I'm going to use now. I have saved the script called time series measures. So what it does is like, it goes to each and individual measures I'm going to select, right? And it asks for what's your date dimension, because for the time series calculation, you need to define your date dimensions and the date key. And then for each and individual measures I'm select, it add a new measure for the YTD, previous year, year on year value, year on year comparison percentage, QTD, MTD, all those measures, right? So let's select all the measures that I created just now, and then I'm going to execute this query against and see how it works. Okay, what's the compilation error? Okay, there's something I selected something else. Yeah, so what happens is once I execute this one, it will create heap of other measures for all the measures I created. For the sales quantity, it has QTD, YTD, PY, year-on-year comparisons, QTD, MTD. Likewise, it brings all the like 50 odd new measures within a couple of seconds. And if you see, check individual measures, you will see the expression. So this one is actually total YTD. And if you go to the year-on-year comparison, it get the sum of return amount minus sum of return on PY. So it automatically convert the values. All those measures works. I'm not going to show how each individual, whether it's working or not, but I can assure that the code works, and like you can play around and see how it works. Okay. So what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to save this code, save these changes to my model, and instantly you will see that all these changes are available in my model. And if you drag and drop a MTD value and maybe with the date dimension, you will see that it should work perfectly fine. Right, it works perfectly fine. The thing is, I'll drop you something else maybe to see maybe full date. Yeah, so it just works the same way that I want it to work. Cool. So I did that. I created the time series calculations. Everything seems fine. Next thing I'm going to do is actually, I want to see whether this model is based on the best practices available in the industry, right? Whether it facilitates all the best practices when we're creating a model. So the best practices, it actually varies. It depends on the organization to organization. You can have different best practices within your organizations, within different companies have different best practices. It's different. It can be varies. So what the tabular would give you something called best practice analysis, and you can manage your own best practices rules. But like you can write your own rules in here. You can create new rules, or there's best practices written within the tabulated team. Set up best practices taken from their experience, written from their experience. You can have a look on this repository, and it actually written as a JSON file. This is a best practice analyzer JSON file written from them. So what it does is like it defines the ID, and each and individual block is one best practice. So it gives you a name of the best practice with the category and comes with a description, how severe is the your best practices, and what scope is applied. It's applied for the measures, calculate columns, likewise, and the expression. This is the most important part. So the expression is written using again same code we show. It's a wrapper code written on top of the C# AMO toolkit, AMO library, but you can write your own expression as well, or if not, you can use the this file and run and see whether your model is adhering to the best practices. And the important thing is, I'll show you, there's something called fixed expression. You can define your own fix as well. So I'll show how it works. when you define a rule, you can say that, okay, if this violates, this is the fix you have to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going back to the tabulator and I'm going to include the local rule files, and then I'm going to browse to my folder, and there's something called BPA rule standard, the one I download from the site, and it shows you these are the rules defined for the best practices. And then I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to go for the best practice analyzer. So when I click that one, it will show all the columns, all the area points where the best practices defined in that JSON file are violated. So if I collapse this one, you will see these are the best practices I have defined. Basically, they have defined within that JSON, like provide a format string for the visible columns. These things don't have format strings. Provide format string for the visible numeric measures, disable attribute hierarchy for the decreased processings, do not use float points the data points, do not summarize numeric columns, likewise, right? So you can see all those areas where the best practices are violated, and not only that, you can fix those in here if you want to. What I'm going to do is, like, I'm going to select all these things and ignore all other things apart from this one, right? So again, right click on them and see that ignore roles. So I'm not gonna apply any of these best practices apart from this one. So what this does is, like, it check each and individual columns within your model and see what are the columns defined as numeric. And by default, we know that in Power BI, if the column is numeric, it define its own aggregations called sum. For example, like if you have the, let's go back to the model and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if you go to the calendar day of week is actually numeric, but it's actually default aggregation is sum. So when you drag and drop in here, it actually sum of the calendar day of week, which is not what we require, because we know that calendar year is numeric, but it's getting the 4 million value, which does not make any sense. Just because it's a numeric doesn't mean I want to make it summarize, right? So I want to remove the sigma column or make it like don't summarize. What I normally do, what we used to do is we go to the model and goes to here, change the summarization to do not summarize. We have to do for each and everything. But best practice analyzer shows that, okay, these are the things that actually violate my best practices, and then you have a look, okay, these are the things that violate your condition. But not only that, you actually can fix it. What you have to do is in here, okay, we'll go back individual, see that which one I want to see the aggregation, which I don't want to. If I select everything from here to here, and I'll say that, okay, factor analysis, line number, I don't want to summarize. And unit cost, I don't want to summarize. Unit price, calendar, none of these I want to summarize. Is holiday, I don't want to summarize. Store managers, employee count, I might want to summarize. Sales area, I might want to summarize. Product weight, no, I don't want to. Unit cost, no. Unit price, no. Discount percent, no. Mean quantity, maximum, yearly income, maybe. Total children's, number of children at house, number of cars on. These are things I actually want to summarize, but rest of things I don't want to summarize from the model. What I want to do is right click on this one and apply fix. Remember, this is only available if the JSON has defined a fix for this rule, right? But if the fix is not available, that option is not available within the best practice analyzer. You have to define your own fix. If I click this one, right, and we'll go back in here, and you will and make the save from here, and see what will happen for my model. See, all the sigma signs are gone from your model, and each and every and is set the do not summarize, apart from the one that I selected were in the customer. Yeah, so these are the things I selected that I don't want to apply my rules. So these things are as it is in my model, right? So which means that, like, I can get a summarize sum from here, but I basically I don't want to go one by one and make it do not summarize for my columns. There are a heap of other things you can do from the models. You can see the, you can create the calculation group, you can make it use the perspectives, you can show the translations, something else, which is well quite helpful if you're showing within the multiple regions in your models. You can see the translation that Power BI will automatically pick the respective text, respective language. So the people from Japan will see the Japan text within the model. People from the China will see the China language. Likewise, it's which is not as of available in the Power BI, but its option is available in the Power BI, but creating the translation is not. So there are a heap of other things you can do with the tabulator. The one important thing I want to show is like, if you go to here, whatever the changes you do, you can click Control Z for the unlimited num, and you can undo all the changes you do, and you can save the changes. So if you don't worry to do any modifications, just click Control Z, and it will go back and it will undo all the changes, and you can see whether it's doing all the undo and redo stuff. So you don't have to worry about whether it's breaking the stuff within the tabular editor. All right. Cool. What else? Okay, so this is done. The next thing what I'm going to do is like, this looks nice for me. The model looks cool. Business user will like it. I have done all the renamings. I have removed all the unwanted columns. I have made the model smaller. I have created all the measures I wanted to have. And the next thing is I want to deploy this to the Power BI service. So this model is already been deployed in my SLPBIC demo workspace. I have this model in here, right? So what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to deploy this one into Power BI. So if I click deploy in Power BI, publish in Power BI, is either all or nothing deployment, which means that all the changes you did for your model will go to the Power BI service if you click the publish. But imagine like you're doing some kind of development, and some of the development are not ready and part of the developments are ready, right? And then business users say that, okay, I want that part quickly because I have a meeting now. You cannot deploy your model because it's half cooked. The file is in the half cooked situation. You cannot deploy it. So that is where my next tool called ALM Toolkit comes to play. So I'm going to open the ALM Toolkit. Let me show you. What it does is like, it asks for you what's your Power BI desktop file, which is already be connected to the model, and where is your data set. So remember, ALM Toolkit is only work with the premium capabilities because it's work with the XML protocol. So you know that XML protocol is only work with either Power BI embedded, Power BI premium, or premium per user licensing, right? So I have the Power BI premium I have embedded in here. So I have set up my data set as embedded, and I can get my URL here, my connection string. I got the connection string from here, and then copy and paste to here, and then it will connect to the demo model. Once I click on this one, it will connect to my service, right? And then if I click OK, it will open up. Show you what's opening up. It's loading. Okay, it will open up this window. So what it does is actually is compare your local file with the file available in your service, and it will show you what are the changes you have done to your model compared to the model available in your service. Okay, I think, yep. It took some time to load all the metadata from the service. So this is the comparison between the file in your local desktop and the file available in your service. You can see changes are changing. So there are a heap of information. I don't want to see everything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see that skip all the objects with same definition, which means that to hide all the object with the same definition. What it does is like, if nothing is changed within your service and between your service and the desktop, it will hide from showing here. So I'm going to click on here, and then it will show all the differences between your local file and the services, or only the differences. So you can see some of things are deleted and some of things got updated. Like these are the things, the new things that I created from my local file, which is not available, and things that are missing. Remember, I basically remove these local date files. So these things are not in my service, and these things are not in source file. These are not in my target files. Likewise, it gives you a definition on what are the changes you actually happen to each and individual table. Like if you click on this one, these date tables are no longer there. If you go to fact online sales, it will show you, okay, these tables, these columns, you have deleted from your service, from your local file, which is available in the service. Likewise, you can do the comparisons in that, okay, some of things that you have hidden, you can have a proper comparison between these two and see that what has changed in your local, what has changed in your service, right? So what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to select only a certain things. Like I'm only going to select these things should go to model, but I'm not sure about the changes happen to total cost, because I'm not sure whether this measure is actually a measure or is actually an attribute within my model. So I'm not sure whether I push this calculation set to the model or keep it and maybe verify it by business user, then only push. So what I'm going to do is like I'm going to right click and select all these measures available in my service and say that skip selected object, right? So, and then it will mark as a skip. And then what I'm going to do is validation my selection, whether my selection has any issues, whether I can deploy it, whether then something is wrong with my service. So something wrong with my PBIX file, and it will go through individual changes you made and see whether it's perfectly fine, whether it's ready to deploy to the service. Cool. So there's no warnings, it's just informations. Then I can update my service, right? So this is actually the one good thing is actually if you go to the Power BI publish, Power BI desktop and publish, it actually publish with your data, right? You say that you have a big model, it will take a lot of time to do the publish, because it's not only do the metadata operations, it actually publish the data, but in here it's just a purely metadata operations. So it will not take a lot of time to deploy the changes to your Power BI service, because it just do the metadata operations as well as it do a process recalc operations. So how you define that, whether you want to do a full refresh or the what's the process type, basically what is the process you don't want to process, or you want to process the process recal, that is defined. So I have defined only the process recal, so which only do a metadata operations rather than pushing all the data in your service. So let's go back to the Power BI service and see whether my all the changes that I have done is perfectly fine. How do I check it? Go to this report, and yeah, this is all. Oh, anyway, it was broken, so I'm going to click the edit and check the model. So you can see that now all these measures things are there, but one thing I selected was not to publish uh, unit cost, which is not available in here, right? Because I say that I don't want that to be published. Okay, now I see that, okay, unit cost is fine, there's no issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a comparison and then go to the same definitions. These things, it seems that these are fine now. So I'm going to select these things again and create the selected object missing in target. So this will be created now if I deploy it. We'll see whether it works. So I'm going to do the validation. I'm going to do the, remember, unit cost is not here. And then I'm going to update my service. So metadata deployment is finished. Process is in progress. Calculation is done. And let's go back to service. And yeah, so I have to go back and refresh this one. I'm not sure with the refreshes. Yep. So if I refresh this one, the total cost, all those things were not available in the previous, is now available in my service because I only select these things to be available, these new changes to be available in my service. Cool. So this is how powerful ALM toolkit is. And there are a heap of other things like you can define what's the processing options, whether you want to process, you want to do a full process only affected, and there are heap of options when you define, and you can get these differences into an Excel sheet and do more analysis if you want to, or give it to someone else to do a more analysis. So these things are available in the ALM toolkit, right? The last thing I want to do is actually, this is the Excel that it generates when you do a comparison. It gives you all the information about the changes, right? Now I've done everything, push the changes to the service. I want to document this model. So for that, I actually use Power BI Helper. So Power BI Helper is actually a big application. As in, like when I say big, it has so many things you can do with your model. I'll show you what I think. So let's click on the connect to model. It will pick your model. And if you go there, you will see that all the DMVs, it executes all the DMVs available in your model. It gives you a heap of information about your model, like let's go in here. It will show you all the tables available in here, and it will pick on individual table. It shows all the columns available in the tables and all the measures available in individual table, and see what are the dependencies of this measure. If you pick this measure, it shows that okay, this measure is being used by these measures, right? So all those information is available in here, and you can see the dependencies list, like how each and individual object is depend on, the individual column is depend on another object, right? You can see all those information, and if you want, you can export into the document, right? But that's not it. Like if you go to visualizations, you can see all the visualizations available. If you go to the Power BI files, this one, it shows what are the visualizations available. Like I have a pivot table and slicers, that information is available, and what are the measures used in that visualizations, which tables are being used, which tables are not being used. You can get all those information, like what are the bookmarks. So this is the only tool which gives you information about visualizations. Maybe there are other tools as well. The tool that I use, that the I demo, is this is the only tool which gives you information about the visualization apart from the model, because all other tools actually connect to the model or the analysis table engine, and you can search the measures and see how the it works. I have not tried this one. I think universe, something like that. You can search and see the how the measure is work, and how it's been used, right? And the next one is you can go for each and individual table and see the M query expressions and see how each and individual table is loaded using M queries. You can get that information, and you can see the DAX queries for the calculated table as well. And this gives you visualization tree, like root objects, those heap of other informations. And this is another area, like it gives you some kind of advice about the model. This is not a sophisticated more advice area, but it gives you some information about what are the things you can do. I wouldn't rely on this one when it's come to the modeling, but give some kind of information. The DMV Explorer, remember I told you there are a heap of DMVs available in the table engine. You can pick each and individual DMV. For example, like if you go for the TM or maybe just go for the measures, right? You will see if you execute, double click on this one, what it does is like it execute, selects all statement against this DMV and shows all this information available in the DMV, and set partitioning, set properties, members, all those. You can pick any of these DMVs and see the information available in this one. Since I don't have much time, I think I only have like 10 minutes more. So yeah, okay. Google, how many minutes do I have left?
It's like -10.
Oh, seriously? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. That's okay.
Yeah, so I think I double click on this one. Yeah. So documentation, there's something called documentation, and unfortunately this got freeze for some reason. So what I show is like you can click on the documentation. It will actually populate something like show you the documentation application. So it will, if you go to documentation, it will open up something like this, right? It basically what this is like, it goes through all the model, and it will list out all the tables, list out the measures and the expressions, pretty much everything is available for you, right? So you can send this to your, if you want to create by your own, if you use a Word document and type each and everything, copy and paste each and everything, it will take a lot of times. But if you go to documentation and select your PBIX files and click generate documentation, it creates a nice formatted tables, set of tables with all the information available for you, right? Cool. So again, it shows all the Qrious as well, which comes handy when you document your model, right? When it's come to the presentations, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to give the credit for all those people who actually created these tools that I demonstrated. You have the Darren's for the Tax Studio and his open source project. So the community help to that one, Daniel and the community for the Tabulate, Christian Wade for the AML toolkit, and Reza and his team for the Power BI helpful. So these are the people. They put their time, put their effort to develop these tools, and then they have given these tools free for you to make your life easier, right? So any questions you have? Now is the time, if I have time.
Asanka, there was one question earlier on from Rosita. Is there any tutorials that you can recommend for us to learn optimizing DAX query in DAX Studio?
Well, SQL BI team has created the introductory level of course for the DAX Studio. Like if you go for the SQL BI site, this one, optimizing DAX Studio, is actually a free trial, which means that you can use it, right? And there's some set of, like, there are a heap of videos available in YouTube as well, but I think they have given the DAX Studio course free, and basically you can use that studio, and there are a heap of videos available in their website as well. Something like that. Query optimization tuning in the DAX Studio is a good video. These are free. All those things are free.
And just copy that link of that video
Yep.
and put it.
Yep.
That will be the answer to Chaturanga's question.
Yep.
Apart from that, anybody else who have any questions, then you can put your hands up. You can type your question there, or you can unmute and ask your question. Okay, there doesn't seem to be much questions, so we can move on to the next one.
Yep.
Shavani?
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you, Asanka, for that very comprehensive and insightful presentation. And now let's move on to the water tip segment. So this is about this session. We have a speaker who is an intern at Fortude, and after completing his training in aircraft maintenance, he has moved to analytics career, and now he has spent a few months working on BI projects. So interestingly, today is his first speaking experience at this type of a technical forum, and there's always a first time for everything, isn't it? So let's welcome our next speaker, Darren White, to do a session on, he will show you how to create eye-catching comparing report using standard BI visuals, Power BI visuals. So over to you, Darren.
Good evening. Thanks, Shavani, for the introduction. Actually, this is actually my first meeting of the Sri Lanka Power BI community. So let me share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, so what I'm going to show you today is just two visuals that will just a few tips to enhance the look and feel of the report. So I'll be showing you how to get just these icons without any header and all, just to give an indication of whether there's been an increase or decrease compared to the previous year or previous month or whatever. And the same goes for these, so it gives a bit of an enhanced KPI card. The data set that I've chosen is from our world in data. It just gives greenhouse gas emissions over the years and for each country. So it's just one fact table and 2-dimension table. So I'll first do this. So for this, the icon uses a year-on-year percentage measure. So let me just drag that. So as you can see here, it's just the digit, and I'll show you how to do the conditional formatting and just get only the icon. So the icon layout, we're just going to select icon only, make it middle, and then do the conditional formatting here. Since we are going to show the negative percentages, just select this to number, because otherwise the logic doesn't accept negative values. So make that, if it's greater than minimum, less than 0, we want a green arrow, and then if it's 0, just the blank, and it's greater than 0. Yeah, just make sure all these are number. Make that max. So yes, we're good to go. Okay, so as you can see, we've just got only the arrows, and now we just want to get rid of this table header. So let's try and rename this visual. So let's just try keeping it blank. So that does not work. Let's try with space. That doesn't work as well. So to fix this, we're going to insert another special character. So let me just So for that, I'm just going to open up the character map. And we're going to search for Unicode character 200B. So that will be a 0 with space. There is this 0 with non-joiner. These 5 all will work. So I'm just going to select this and select copy, and then rename, and then just copy and paste it in there. Okay, and there we go. So we do not have the table header, so it's quote unquote an empty field. So this is not something I discovered on my own, so it's not like I was so bored during lockdown that I decided to explore all the characters, the Unicode characters in the character map. So this is something that I learned on a session done by Priscilla Cam at Data Weekender. Yeah, so that is my first visual. The next one, I'm going to show you how to create this visual. So we start off with a text box. Just let me resize that. Okay, so we've got the text box, and we're going to apply conditional formatting to the background. So we are going to show the worldwide emissions of nitrous oxide. So I'm going to select, So I'm going to, the conditional formatting will use the year-on-year percentage to indicate either an increase or a decrease. So that's the measure that we have chosen. I'm going to format it by rules. And so it's greater than minimum, and just green. New rule is 0, and just select amber, and next is greater than 0, less than maximum, and red. Yeah, that will sort out the background. Just please ignore that the colors don't match. And next, on top of that, we're going to insert shape. So you might wonder why we can't put a shape at the base itself. So the reason for that is the shape cannot be the fill, as in conditional formatting cannot be applied to the background of the shape. As you can see here, we'll just make that white. And just remove the outline as well. And so that is the next. We're just going to have a card visual. So the card visual will show world NO2 emissions. Let's just remove the category, reduce the size of this, and put a title. Okay, and we'll just save measure, just remove the background, and that is it. Next, I'm just going to take a table, and into this I'm going to use the same measure that I used for the conditional formatting. And here again, we're just going to remove the table, the column header, so that that's removed. Remove the outline as well, just to make it look as transparent as possible to blend it in, and also reduce the size of the column header font size to minimize the size. This again, we are going to apply conditional formatting. So here we are going to keep the data, so it will be left of data, and middle, and yeah, okay, so that's it. And yeah, so that's our table. Just stretch it out a bit in case sometimes when the value increases, sometimes it gets a bit cluttered there and the size of the window is not enough. This also, let's remove the background. Okay, so we drag that there and place it there. And then as you can see, we have this little arrow here, and if someone just happens to put their pointer over it, it will show, so we just want to hide that. So here again, we're just going to have a small shape, just make it white, blend it in. Okay, and then the final part of this is to arrange the layer order. So we're going to go to the selection. I'm just going to move the table below the card so that it doesn't block the KPI, as in block the card visual. And then finally we're just going to group these two together and then just name it. And then once that's done, we can just easily move it around without worrying about everything going out of alignment. So that's about it for my demo. I hope this was something new to all of you. And I'd finally like to thank Gobula for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. So there was one question. Oh no, it's more of a comment. It's Zita says, oh, it's using table visual to make KPI indicator and value in one visual is a great tip as to improve page performance to avoid adding two visuals for the same. Thanks for that comment, Rosita.
Yeah, thanks.
Shavani, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Darren. And as your first session, you did a great job. We can see it from the comments we got from the audience as well. So let's now move on to the announcement section. So I'll hand over the session back to Gogula to continue with this.
Thanks, Shavani. You can keep the presentation as it is there. So the Power BI DevCamp, there's one on January 28th. They're talking about how to build custom visuals. Like last time, I don't have the link to it because they haven't published the link to that particular session. But I do have the main page, which I'll just paste here. So sooner or later, they will have the meeting link in there. They might publish it there. So keep an eye out on this page. So the session link should appear sooner or later. And the other one is in the December 2020 version of the Power BI desktop, there are lots of different changes relating to Darren's topic today. One of the features that I seem to like is the small multiples, which is still in preview. So this is where in a report you can have, let's say, a graph with certain values, maybe spread across different countries, and then you can then split that graph into multiple graphs, one for each country. Okay, so that's a very interesting feature which which a lot of people have requested for. So I would suggest you guys take a look at it. I'm pasting the link for that one. So this is one of many updates that came with the Power BI Desktop 2020 update. Then this month there is no update for Power BI Desktop. The next one will be in February, probably because they were taking a break during the holidays. Then a request, please join our community. Now, by joining the meetup, you are part of the community, but we have this link here. I'll just put it up. But the problem is, I think this month they have changed these things. So this may not work actually. If you go to that site, they have updated the site with a few more stuff there. So in due course, I will publish the new link. So I will not put a link for the community. So what we want from you guys is to be more interactive with us, showcase your knowledge that you have, your experience, expertise. One way is to speak here on this meetup. Then we also have a forum where you can have your questions, your problems all answered. And I would like those who are in the community to join in and help answer those questions and create a thriving Power BI community. And then finally, the Power BI YouTube channel. We do have a YouTube channel, and we have been promising to have all our recordings up there. This is the link to it, but I still haven't been able to host the rest of the recordings except for the first one. So along with this, there should be 4 coming up soon. I will work on them, though I promised to do it in December. I have not been able to, but everything is uploaded. I just need to put it into place and keep it proper so you guys can access these recordings. So we'll have that up very soon. So those are some of the announcements. And thank you very much for joining. Back to you, Shavani.
Yeah, thank you, Google. I think with that we came to an end of today's meetup, and so with that we'll wind up the session for today. And thank you all. Thank you very much, Asanka and Darren, for taking spend your time here to share your knowledge with this audience, and also all the members who joined today, all the attendees for joining with us today. And with that, we'll end the session and have a great day, rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of the day. Good night, and we'll see you on next month with the next meetup of Sri Lanka Power BI community. Thank you. Bye.